Hi guys, I'm going to show you how to use the text component in Flutter and React Native. Let's start with React Native. To show text in React Native, you simply have to open a text tag like this. Then inside here, that's where you put the text. So for example, let's put subscribe. Once you do this, I save, and you see the text coming out on your screen right there. That's how you show text in React Native. Now let's say I want to show the value of a variable inside the text component right here. So I'll just declare a variable here and just call it my var and assign the value subscribe to it like this. Now here I don't just write my var because remember this accepts text. So if I write my var like this, it will just show my var just like that. But if I want to show this value subscribe, which is the value of my var, the variable, then inside here I have to envelope this my var with curly braces so that it accepts the variable. And once I do this, you see the value of the variable subscribe on your screen right there. That's how you show the value of a variable inside the text component. Now in terms of styling in React Native, I'll use inline styling just like this, but you can also create a style sheet, then define the different styles that you want so that you can use the same style in different components. But for the example, I'll just use inline styling and I'll say style. You place it, small letters, inside the opening tag just like that, and you say style, then you put double curly braces. Then inside here, that's where you put everything that you want depending on what you want the text to do. So for example, let's say you want to look at color. Color is one thing that's different, especially in React Native, because in React Native color, you have to define the color that you want. So for example, if I say red, red is a color that's already known inside, that's already defined. So if I say red, it will show. But most of the times, if you want a complicated color, such as turquoise or something like that, like a color that's hard to predict, like a color that's in between, then you have to look at the hex code. So for example, yeah, I'll just put a random hex code and just say something like this. I don't know which color it is. It seems like it's purple, purplish, something like that. Or maybe let's say 183, something like this, then green, something like that. So you get the idea. So color, you have to define hex if you want a specific color. But if you want like general colors, you can just say orange. You can just put any other color that's just general and it will show you. But there are some colors which are not defined, and these colors, then you have to use the hex. You can also use RGB values. RGB values are basically just like hex, but this time these are like values for the red, green, and blue color. So it's more technical, but this is something that for an expert you need to know these values. You need to know which values correspond to red or orange or something like that. So it's a bit complicated, and I think as a beginner you can just use simple things that you might just understand. There are also other attributes inside the style, such as font size. For example, font size, you change the size of the font. So let's just say 20 and see. You see it becomes bigger right there. You can also change things like font family. Now the font family, you have to put your fonts inside the assets folder. This is not the tutorial for that, but you can check for tutorials on how to put fonts inside your application. But font family, basically you assign the font that you want, which is not the default font, which is assigned here in React Native. So font family, there's also font weight. Font weight, basically you put values, whether you want it to be normal, to be bold, or how much you want the line or the borderline for the text to be in terms of boldness, right? So 600 makes it a bit bolder, just like that. If you say bold, it makes it like really bold and things like that. So you just play around with that. There are also things like margin, padding. Like if you say margin margin really corresponds to, let's just say margin left and say 10, it will shift to the right just by 10. So for example, like that. Let's look at margin right. If you say margin right, it will shift to the right by 10 again, like that, to shift. So basically, if you just play around with these values, then you can understand how you can place your text. So for example, margin is used if maybe you have text that is coming after another text or coming after another component, so which you want to push aside so that it can be more clearer. So you use margin, you use padding and things like that. This is how you style in React Native, but there are different other, like there are many attributes like flex basis, direction, flex growth, think, flex wrap, where you can wrap the text inside the container, the font style, the variant. There are lots of attributes. So if you check this from the React Native website, then you can understand how these attributes work and how you can use them inside your application. So nesting text components is as easy and free to do. What you just need to do, I'll just copy this text component. Then inside this text component, after this variable, I just place the other component. Then as you can see, it will show the two components here. The challenge is you can pretty much achieve the same thing if you just use two variables like my var again. But usually people nest text components if they want to use different attributes for those components. So for example, if I want to use a different color for the other text, I just say orange, and then you see it will show orange. Or I want to use a different font size, or I want to use a different font weight and things like that, or italic, etc. So this helps in terms of changing different styles in different text components, and this is the easiest and most straightforward way of doing it. You can use a row, you can use other components to achieve quite the same effect. The challenge is this is not as easy as just doing it like this. So this is how you nest text components in React Native. To make text bold in React Native, you simply have to look at font weight. So this font weight, you can play around with it with different values. For example, if you can check right there, once I hover over the font weight, so you can put like bold, which you have already seen, which is already there. This is small letter, bold. And once I do this, then you see it's a bit bolder like that. If I say 100, you can see it's a bit shallower, right? If I say bold, you can see really makes it bold. So if you want to make text bold in React Native, then you look at the font weight. In React Native, it's quite easy to make text clickable because most components have an onPress function already in them. So basically, if I say onPress inside the text method, then I bind the function. I'll just alert something here. I'll just bind it here, but it's not recommended to bind functions inside the render method because this makes it slower. So what you need to do is bind it inside the state, which is another tutorial which you can check out on my channel again, link in the description. And once you do this, then it makes it more efficient. But for the purpose of this example, let's just show you. So if I click subscribe, it will say pressed like that. So to just make more sense, if I click subscribe, it will say subscribed. Voila, this is how you make text clickable inside React Native. To align text in React Native, you simply have to use one of these. So here it's already in the center because I had already aligned the container itself. So in the container, if you say align items, this view container has an item text, so it aligns it to the center, then justifies it to the center as well. But if I remove align items, you see that it will align to the left. So once you do this, you can then place a line here. But you don't say align items because this text does not have any other component inside of it. It's not a container of any component. So you say align self. Align self means the container itself, and then you say center. So once you do this, you see it will go to the center. This is how you align, center align text inside React Native. Now let's move on to Flutter. So in Flutter, if you want to show text on your app, you simply put a child inside the container just like this. I'll put it as a const since my class is also a constant. Then say text, or text is subscribe. Then like this should be done. So once I do this, I reload, and you'll see it will output the text right there. So in Flutter, if you want to show text on your app, you simply do this text. It's different from React Native where you put tags, then you put your text inside, but this time you open parentheses, then put the value of the data that you want to show on your application, then you can put the other things afterwards. So this is how you show the value subscribe. So if you want to show the value of a variable inside the text component, one thing you need to do is I'll just define a variable here, and I'll say string my var, just like in React Native, and I'll say subscribe. For you to see the difference, I'll just put subscribe without exclamation mark. Then here I'll put my var like that. Then I'll remove the const because that's not a constant variable right there. Just restart the app so that it really refreshes everything. Then you can see subscribe without the exclamation mark. If I put the exclamation mark back in there and restart, you can see right here, there it is. So this is how you show the value of a variable inside the text component. So styling text in Flutter is pretty simple. Again, it's just the same as React Native. So one thing that's cool about Flutter is once you hover over a component, it will show you the different attributes that are accepted. So data, just like this data, the value of the variable. Then after that, you place all the other attributes. You don't place the attributes first, then the data, just as you can see from here, because these are classes which are defined, they're constructors just like this. So you just have to follow exactly what's given. This you can put it in any way you like because this is a map, as you can see right there. So we want the style because that's the style of the text. So you just say style, and style accepts text style, right? Which is another class again. Pretty sure you're now getting confused, but basically this is how it works because each and everything is always assigned to a class. So text style again is a class which has other attributes as well. You can check which attributes it takes. Then color, it accepts colors, which is another class which has different colors. And this is one thing that's cool about Flutter, that there are different colors that are already there which you can choose from. So black, different shades of black, deep purple, green, etc. So for example, if I say green, then I just choose a shade of green, let's say 500, which is about half. Then do that, then you can see there. If I say 900 or 800, which is a bit darker, you can see it went a bit darker. You can see all these swashes of green or shades from here, so you can see exactly the hex right there. Then you can see all the shades and how you can assign these colors, or how you can take these colors and how you can use them. So this is pretty simple inside Flutter. Now let's look at things like font size. Font size, basically it's pretty much the same again, just font size just like this, nothing different there. Let's just say 15, make it a bit bigger so that you can see, right? If I say 15, okay, I think that was the one that's already there. Let's just say 25. You can see it becomes a bit bigger. So you can look at other things like font family again, in the same vein with React Native. You have to assign or place these font files inside your application. Then you declare them inside the pub spec. Then after you do this, then you can use them here. You can just write the name of the font file which you've already assigned and which you've already declared inside the pub spec, or declared the path of those font files. So this is something you need to learn again in another tutorial. There's another tutorial for that. The font family is there. There are also things like font weight, right? Font weight, which is pretty much the same. Remember, in Flutter, these are all classes. So font weight, font size doesn't accept a class. You can already see if you hover around above that, it says double, which means it accepts a number. If you hover above font weight, it accepts font weight. This is one trick you can use to make sure you understand what that attribute wants. So this attribute font weight wants you to accept font weight, which is the class, like this. Then if you say font weight dot, it will show you the different values. And just like React Native, it has different numbers like 100, 700 again, which are different variations of thickness. So if I reload here, okay, let me restart so that you can see the different variations of thickness, right? I think that's already there. Let's say 700 so that you can see 700, as you can see. So basically you can play around with it as much as you want. Now let's look at margin. Margin is not there inside this text component. As you can see, if you place your mouse above this text style, you can see there's no margin right there. If you place it above text again, you can see there's no margin. So basically what this means is, if you want to place margin, you have to then put another container, maybe surround it with another container, like a padding container, which is already there. And once you surround it with the padding container, then you can shift it to the left, shift it to the right, or down, depending on what you want. Otherwise, this text component in itself does not contain that. So that's one thing that you have to note. So for example, since I placed it above inside this container, the container, as you can see, is a padding. The container also has a margin, which are things like that. So for example, if I say margin, this will be the margin of the container. Let's say padding, which will be the padding of the items inside. Then I'll say edge inserts only. If you do this, it will make you select a side. Let's say left, then I say 30. Let's see how it goes. I'll just say const here, like that. And sorry, I just need to do this. All right. Then if I reload, as you can see, it shifted to the left right there. Then if I say 0, you can see it comes back to the center. So this is how you can work around that in terms of margin. So in terms of nesting text components inside of Flutter, you cannot do that with this implementation just as itself, because this doesn't accept any child, as you can see from its attributes. If you can hover above the container, you can see it accepts a widget child. So you are looking for a container which accepts another widget. So it's not as loose as React Native is. So because this text doesn't accept a widget inside of it, it just accepts other things like attributes and data. What you need to do is you need to create a workaround of that. If you want to maybe, use different colors, maybe use a row, then place 2 different texts inside so that it can achieve the same purpose. Or you can use the rich text, which you can then implement differently based on which colors or which styles that you want. So basically, nesting texts is not as easy in Flutter. You have to create workarounds so that you can achieve the same effect that you can get inside React Native. So if you want to make text bold in Flutter, one thing you need to do is just to work around the font weight again, which is pretty much the same in terms of like the attribute name with React Native. Then here you it takes the class font weight. Then from this class you have different options, and one of the options is bold again, just like that. Then once you do this and reload, you can see it has become bold. It doesn't really show here, so I'll just say 100 so that you see the effect. Let's save, then reload. Then once I do this, I return it to bold so that you can really see, because it was already bold from the start. So there. So this is how you make text bold inside Flutter. So in Flutter is not as straightforward as you might expect, because these components don't necessarily have the onPress function, just as React Native has most of these methods inside the components already. So in Flutter you have to use a component which accepts that, or which can be pressed by the user so that it can return an action. One that I like to use is called an inkwell. So for example, an inkwell accepts a child as well. So if I say inkwell here, then I say child, then I close here like this, right? Now once I do this inside the inkwell, if I hover above here, you can see it has already all these functions which I can then use to make this text clickable. So once I wrap this text with the inkwell, then possibly I say print. I'll just print it in the console, so that right here, so that you can see. So I say print pressed like this. Okay, it doesn't need to terminate if I do that. Okay, if I reload, then I tap this, you can already see it shows me pressed inside this console. So this is how I can make my text clickable. The text itself does not have a press or on tap function or method, so you have to wrap the text inside another component which has that method, just like this inkwell, and there are a lot of other components that you can then use to achieve the same effect. So for me, the best practice if you want to align text to the center is just to use a container, then use the alignment of that container and push the text to where you want it. There are other components as well, like the align component, which you can use. There are different components like the column. Again, you can align your text or your components to the center based on what you want the text to look like on your screen. So I just like playing around with it. So for example, if I say center left, then it will push it to the left. As I say center right, push it to the right. This just helps me in aligning the text based on the width and the height of that container. Because this container is the only container here, or the parent container, and it's filling up the whole screen, it will obviously push it to the very center. So this text align here will only work if the container, this one, has a defined height and width that then I can then use. And if that width is defined as according to maybe the screen width, then that text align will work if I then remove this alignment from the container. But the best practice definitely is just to use a container, because this is very efficient and very useful for most of your needs. This is the end of our video. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe.